Hey, welcome. My name is Aaron, and I am so glad that you're here. Today, I am here with Cody, and we are going to talk about everything that has to do with gear, why it's important, and why it's probably not so important. So let's dive right in. Can you tell us just a little bit about kind of who you are, a little bit of a backstory on just you two, just so that people get to know exactly who you guys are?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Cody. I'm a wedding filmmaker. We're based out of Tampa, Florida. Our business is called Faith and Cody, photo and film. So Faith is my girlfriend. She does the photo side of our business, and then I do all the filmmaking side of our business. We got started almost 4 years ago. We'd been dating for a couple years, and no, sorry, take that back. 3 years. We were dating for a couple years, and then I was kind of dabbling in video and photography, not necessarily like full time. She was a full-time photographer, did a lot of weddings back then. And a lot of her clients just needed a videographer. So she was looking for somebody to refer. I was like, I can shoot video. Weddings, seem kind of fun. So I started shooting weddings with her, and I think probably like 6 months of us working together, we're like, yo, let's just like make this a business. Let's do this together. So yeah, we've been doing it together ever since. But yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't know that part about you guys. So
Yeah.
I feel like a bad friend at this point.
Yeah, no, it's crazy.
Wow. So you guys have been doing this 3 years
Yes. Mm-hmm.
together?
Yeah. Together. Yep.
That's awesome. Wow. Dude, 3 years.
Time flies.
And you're,
yeah, right.
I will say this though. You got to go check out his work. Like, his work is phenomenal. For 3 years, it's impressive. It's impressive. So, yeah,
Sure.
go check them out. Also, I'm going to plug you in here. Where can they find you on Instagram?
Yeah, so our Instagram is Faith and Cody Photo. We've been trying so hard to get the Instagram name Faith and Cody, but it's been really hard. So yeah, it's just at Faith and Cody Photo on Instagram.
Awesome. So go follow them. They're amazing. They do amazing work. I had the opportunity to go and second shoot for you guys in Jacksonville not too long ago. And it was just awesome. Loved hanging out with you guys. And yeah, anyways, so that's them. Let's dive into the topic of gear. Oh man, this topic, I feel like,
Which way do we want to go?
yeah, which way do we want to go with this? I am a gear hoarder. Like, I will buy any piece of gear just to buy the piece of gear, just because I want to try it. And I probably should rent it to try it, but I always end up buying it to try it. And then I'm the one that returns it if I don't love it. I think it got so bad at one point. Oh man. All right. I'm just going to admit this. It got so bad at one point that, when was it? I think 2 years ago, where I just bought gear at Best Buy. Like, I was just buying gear. It got to the point where Best Buy decided, like, hey, you're not allowed to return any gear because you've spent so much money on returns that it's costing us money. I was like, all right, then that just told me that I had a problem. But with all of this gear coming out it almost seems like on a daily basis, like every week there's something new coming out from Sony, from Canon, from Fuji, from all these manufacturers. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it's so easy to get caught up in the specs and like the new tech and like what it can do, that we get so distracted and almost discouraged from the gear that we have and the gear that we own, thinking, man, this isn't going to work out for me. I need that, right? And that's probably really great marketing on their end.
Very.
But for wedding videographers like us, or photographers, really anyone, it can be so distracting. So, Cody, like, what does that look like to you? How do you feel about like all these new cameras coming out? What does that is that the same thing for you? Like, is it what goes through your mind when something like that happens?
Yeah, I mean, it is very difficult. I think in the 3 years that we've been filming weddings, I've gone through Sony, Panasonic, Canon, Blackmagic, back to Canon, back to Sony, back to Canon. So I've had my fair share of the quote unquote like gear race. But yeah, no, I think it's just finding a piece of gear or an equipment that really resonates with you and you know how to work with. I think I don't think it's a bad thing to spend a lot of time and or money trying to find the piece of equipment that works best for you. I mean, it's with anything. So yeah, I'm super happy with my gear now in the 3 years that I've been doing this. So I don't get so caught up in it anymore. I mean, I do, and I don't, but I think what's helped for me is like unfollowing B&H Photo on my Instagram and
Yes.
unfollowing all these camera companies, because it is crazy. It's just every other day something new is coming out, and it's tough to keep up with, especially if you know, like I always see, you know, people using gear that I might not have, and their films are better than mine, and then it's you know, maybe I correlate the gear with their filmmaking style, but that couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah.
So it is easy to get caught up in that, and I think at some point in all of our careers, we definitely do get caught up in that, but it's not a bad thing, because once you find that piece of equipment that you really enjoy using, it does make those like years worth it for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I love that. And I think you said it's not a bad thing, and I love that you said that, because I think ultimately we did fall in love with the craft because of the tools that we use to make the craft, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I think it's fun. Get into the gear, but don't obsess over it.
Yeah.
And then with all of that, let's talk about the biggest question that a lot of people ask is gear important? Like, how important is gear? Because obviously gear is important. Those are the tools that you use to create these things. But
Yeah.
how important is it to have the latest, the greatest? You know, and for me, I truly believe like it's essential to have something good. You don't necessarily need the best.
Mm-hmm.
Because at this point, there's so many cameras that are just so good. Like
Yeah.
anyone can pick up a $1,200 camera that's amazing. Like Blackmagic, they have incredible cameras for a really low price point. And when I say low, I mean around the $900, $1,200 price range if you look for them used. And that's a really great deal.
Absolutely.
You know, like Fuji, that's another incredible camera. Like what was it? The XT3s. Amazing cameras, and so you don't really need the latest and greatest. What were some of the cameras that you guys maybe started out with, or some of the cameras that you love that you're like, oh man, that was a really solid camera for the price point, for what it could do, and how did it affect you in your workflow, and in the way that you shoot weddings?
Yeah, for sure. So I started out with a Sony like A5100 or something like that. It was like
man.
a $500 little like, I don't know, photo video camera combo thing. But yeah, I started out with that. And then I remember I watched like Casey Neistat back in the day and his YouTube channel, and he was always raving about the Canon, I think it was 70D at the time. And it shot 60 frames a second, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I think that's like slow motion footage is like actually what made me fall in love with videography. So whenever I got my hands on that camera, I shot everything in 60p and just went crazy. But yeah, sorry, can you repeat the question again?
No. So how does like,
yeah. Oh yeah.
How did it affect your workflow as far as like the gear that you had?
Yeah. So, I don't, I'm trying to figure out how to answer that question.
So if you want, I'll kind of give you how it affected our workflow. And it was, The 70D, I actually remember that because that was the second camera that I ever owned was a 70D, and I was like, man, I hit jackpot with this. Like, I am at the
Yeah.
top. I felt like I bought a cinema camera. I was like, 70D, let's go.
Yeah.
And but I started with the SL1, and that was a like the Canon, the SL1, the little tiny one, with the kit lens. I think it's like an 18 to
Like
something.
55. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. And it like went from like f 3.5 to like f 5.6 or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and that was like where we started, and then obviously the 70D came into play, and that was amazing because it had, I don't think, yeah, 60 frames a second. I think that one did. I don't remember.
Yeah.
No, the
Maybe it was
ADD, the ADD.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
The ADD. Yep.
And so, anyways, but we did get the 70D, and I was like, man, this thing is awesome, and it it was exciting to get a new piece of gear because it allowed me to. I felt, and even though it wasn't true, I felt like I could get more creative, and it
For
was
sure.
just a perception. It's a perception thing where it's like, man, I have something better, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna make something better.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it is with over the years. It's like you get a new piece of gear. Like when we got the ADD, I was like, 60 frames a second. Oh my gosh.
My videos are going to be so much better.
Bro, that film was all slow mo. Like the
Yeah.
first film with that camera was just nothing but slow motion. And it wasn't necessarily better, but it was something new that I was excited for. And it pulled me to like shooting, 60 frames a second and slowing things down. Or when we got the, what was it? It was the Fuji's, yeah, the XT3s, and then the XT4s. I was like, oh my gosh, 10-bit F-Log. Like I can do so much more. And I feel like
Yeah.
it's just a perception of things moving forward and getting better so that you can create better work. And it's partially true because I feel like the better the gear becomes, you have more room to grow. For example,
Yeah.
you can't put a gallon of water in a cup of water, right? Because it's limited to a cup. But you can put a gallon of water in a gallon bucket, right? Like because it's meant for 1 gallon. So your capacity grows with the gear that you have in that aspect, but it doesn't necessarily make you a better videographer because you can work with
sure.
any gear, right? But you can always grow with the gear in that aspect.
Yeah. No,
So
for
what are
sure.
your thoughts on that?
No, I totally agree. And I think, like before I buy a piece of gear, I'm always watching YouTube videos, see what's possible with the camera. So, and I've done that since the beginning with, Casey Neistat and even my Sony A5100. I found this YouTuber that I really enjoyed watching, and I was like, oh, this is all possible with this camera. So I think as you grow in that respect too, it's like seeing what other people are doing with that camera can really strike that creativity, and seeing what other people are doing with the same equipment that you have. So
Yeah. Have you, this is probably off topic, but when you have a camera that's limited, at least I do this. I would go into YouTube and I'll be like, how can I make this even better than it already is? Like
Yeah.
with the Canon, I think they came out with the profiles, like different profile settings that mimic
Yeah.
a log setting. And I was like, yes,
Yeah.
I'm going to load this thing on my camera. It's going to be so much better.
Yeah.
So it was just always fun to kind of find ways to push the limits of what you already have. But yeah, I think ultimately, it's gear is important. It is important in the sense of it allows you to grow, but it takes time to grow. I hate when people buy these expensive cameras on forums and they're like, hey, how do you use the A7S III? I'm like, bro, first of all,
Yeah.
you shouldn't be buying that if you don't know how to use a camera.
Yeah.
Go buy yourself a cheap used camera. Learn how to use that first.
Yeah.
And then begin shooting videos and get better at your craft. And then grow into the next camera for the next season. Ah, man, that's so frustrating. Like,
Yeah. That's
I'm
when
like,
you just have to tip your hats to the marketing team at Sony
Yeah.
and Canon, and everybody's consuming the content and they're wondering what cameras people are using because you know, how can I make my
Yeah.
videos look like that? Oh, it's with this camera. But
Yeah.
again, that couldn't be further from the truth. It's all about the story and how you're using that gear to tell your story. So
Oh, that's good. Dude, there you go. We're going to segue into that actually. How does that affect storytelling? The gear that you have. And let's move past just cameras for a second. Because there's more than just cameras on the wedding day.
yeah.
One of the biggest things that I wish I would have done is, and I wish I would have invested in better lenses before I ever invested in any camera body.
Yeah.
Because I never understood the power of a lens and how it actually worked until I think a year in, and I was still using a kit. I'll tell you, oh man, this is embarrassing. I bought a C100 and I was using a kit lens, bro.
Nice.
Like I was like, and now I look back, I'm like, man, what was I thinking? Like I wasn't using that camera to its full potential because I was crippling it with the lens.
Yeah.
But finding, like, I think again, like learning your gear and understanding how it works for you, how it tells a story on a wedding day, like it's more important than the gear itself. And you said it's so good. So, what, how do you incorporate your gear for storytelling? Like, what are some things that you look for in gear to help you tell a better story?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to that, I mean, obviously, it's got to have all the specs that I need for the way that we film. So a nice clean image with good colors, and good like highlight roll off and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I use a Canon C70, which could be considered a top of the line like camera for a wedding filmmaker, but I've just found that that's the best camera, the best bang for my buck because of it's easily customizable. It fits really well in my hand, and I'm not worried the entire day about like switching settings and doing all this stuff. So ease of use is definitely number one. And then you're carrying this thing around for 8 to 10 to 12 hours a day. It's got to feel nice in your hands. Like I don't want this. I did the Black Magic thing where I have this heavy built out rig with V-mount batteries and all that kind of stuff. And I did that for like a 6-month stretch, and my back was like, yo, you need to get rid of this thing and go a different route. So, yeah, I mean, for me, it's all about ease of use, comfortability, and then, the way that the picture looks coming out of the camera.
Yeah.
And ease of use, obviously, through your editing workflow and stuff like that. Like B-roll was probably the best looking image that I've ever shot with. But, I would walk away with a wedding with 2 terabytes of footage, and storage adds up and computers don't hold up and all that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah. That's okay. So you said a lot of things that if I was to start out and I was listening to this podcast, I'd be like, I don't know what the frick you're talking about. You're talking about highlight roll off. You're talking about obviously colors and like storage. Like how does like all of this, like how does to somebody, if you're starting out, like if you were to talk to yourself about, hey, don't get the most expensive or the latest camera because your storage is going to be expensive. How is it going to be expensive? Well, these cameras are shooting, I think like 60 seconds of footage. It's roughly about 2 gigs nowadays. And that's like 2 gigabytes is a lot of storage for just 1 minute clip. Like that's, or not even 1 minute, maybe like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So like that adds up. And then all of this with color and like highlight roll-offs and the way that it shoots, like all of these things, if you're listening to this right now and you don't know what it means, it's totally fine.
It's totally fine.
It's probably not the camera for you.
Yep.
Like we said earlier, you're gonna grow into the gear that you need. So don't go out buying a Sony A7S III, a Canon C70, or anything like crazy just because of the specs. But buy something that feels right. Or actually, I'm gonna go and say, hey, go ahead and just rent a camera that you want to try. Try it out. Try it out first. If you can figure it out and if you love it and it works for you, that's your camera. If it doesn't work for you, most likely it's not your camera. You gotta go find something that works for what you're doing. And to be honest with you, all the stuff that Cody is using right now is amazing. But for weddings, a lot of people might say it's overkill, and it probably is. Like the cameras that I'm using too are overkill because weddings don't need that much stuff. But it's nice to have. It's things that we have grown to appreciate, and we decided, hey, it's time for us to move up to the next camera so that we can get these little things that will make our films just that much better at the end. And it works for the way that we edit. It works for the way that we, color the films. And this takes time. I think, how much time did it take you guys to get to the point where it's like, okay, we figured out our workflow. Like, we're going to use this camera and this is it.
I would say last wedding season. So about 2.5 years, probably.
Wow.
Yeah. It took a minute for sure. Yeah. I mean, it's just about finding the right stuff that fits your needs, and going from there. And that's not to say that you might find something that you really enjoy, but if you want to change in 6, 7 months, 8 months, like do it, like do what makes you happy, do what's going to, spark that creativity. And, I mean, eventually you'll find something that sticks. And when you do, don't look back, keep going. So.
Yeah. Oh man, that's good. I wish I would have heard this podcast when I started out.
Dude, same.
Yeah. Because I would have saved myself. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, I feel like you have to almost make those mistakes to find the appreciation for the gear that you really enjoy using.
100%. Yeah. Yeah, it's like watching somebody on YouTube talking about the gear that you want, but unless you have it in your hands, it's not the same. it's like, not, yeah. Does this work for me? Like, I don't care if it works for you. I don't care about the specs. Like, they look awesome. Does it work for me? A good example was, this is actually a really great example. When the Sony a7S III came out, I bought it, and I was like one of the first batches to come in, and I got it in the mail. I got super lucky, by the way. And I opened it up and I was like, yeah, this is awesome. And I returned it. I returned it the same week because it didn't fit my workflow back then, with the way that the Sony shot. Like, it just didn't fit. And the Sony a7S III is an amazing camera, but we weren't shooting in any kind of log profile. So we had the X-T3 and the X-T4s, and they were shooting beautiful images right out of the camera, and it just didn't compare to what the Sony was doing. But then when we switched our workflow to a log workflow, the Sony a7S III made so much more sense. So then we picked that up again after about 8 months to a year, and now we're full on Sony. And that just goes to tell you, like, find your workflow and find tools that are going to make that workflow easy, efficient, and just possible for you and anything that you're doing. Cody, what are 3 things that you would say to somebody looking for a camera? For weddings, specifically for weddings, what should they be looking for in those cameras?
Ooh, all right. This could go so many ways too, I feel like.
Let's talk essential. Like, what are some essential things that you should have?
Yeah, I mean, I think you want to find something that are we talking specs, or are we talking like,
let's talk ease of usability. Let's talk about a good image, and you could talk about maybe a type of lens. You could be like, I don't know, just anything that has to do with gear. What are some things that people should look for when getting into wedding videography?
Yeah, if I'm just now starting out and I want to get into wedding videography, I'm probably going to buy everything used secondhand. There's there's hundreds and thousands of people that are in this gear race that sell amazing equipment. And the last year I've really taken to buying used things, because you can find a lot of really good equipment that has, minor use, that works perfectly fine. So to start off, I'm buying everything used. I'm going to find a good solid camera body that fits my needs, probably shoots 4K, at least 60 frames a second. And then I'm going to probably buy like a 24-70 lens. And then I'm going to spend the rest of my budget probably on audio gear. That's one thing I wish I would have known in the beginning, is how important audio gear is. And a lot of your story comes from the audio aspect, not so much the picture. So I would, again, find used stuff on Facebook Marketplace, eBay, wherever. Just find a good piece of audio equipment.
Yeah, that's so good. And we could talk about audio in a totally different podcast, because that's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. On audio. Yeah, but I love that. You just need a solid camera. You need a solid lens, like a 24-70. Mm-hmm. And then audio. Like, you don't need much to get started. You don't need a lot.
Yeah.
You honestly probably don't need something that shoots 4K. Like, you even like 1080p, you can get a really good camera with 1080p image. And you don't necessarily need something that shoots 60p either. It's not a necessity. It's nice to have, but you don't need it. And you can get a solid camera with, I'm gonna say, under $1,200, like a solid system with 2 lavs, lens, and a camera under like $1,200 if you look for it used, and it like a solid piece of gear for you to go and shoot a wedding.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
So yeah, I mean, is there anything else that you think that we need to hit on this podcast? Because, oh man, because there's so much gear out there that we can just keep talking about. Lenses, cameras, tripods, anything. But I think you said it well. Like, just find something that works for you. But I don't know. Is there anything else that you want to add before we hop off?
No, yeah. I just, at the end of the day, find something that works for you, something that makes you happy, something that makes you want to be creative, and go out there and take advantage of the equipment that you have. You don't always need the newest and best thing, quote unquote best. Not everything that comes out these days is the next best thing. There's plenty of cameras out there that are just as good, if not better, than what's coming out. So.
Oh, so good. Cody, dude, it's been awesome having you here.
Thank you.
I can't wait to see what you guys do. Again, if you guys are not following them, go and do so. They're incredible people. Their work is amazing. And just go follow them. Other than that, if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe. If you're not watching on YouTube, go watch, because why not? Like, you can listen and watch, right? Other than that, I hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day, and we will see you on the next one.